This is the Chenoweth Fort Spring House, built way back in 1786 by a man named Richard Chenoweth to supply his nearby family farmhouse with chilled milk, meats, and produce during the hotter months of the year. And while the old spring house now sits on the outskirts of what we know today as Middletown, Kentucky, the land it was originally built on was raw, untamed frontier land, back before Kentucky was even declared a state. And these days, the Little Spring House is actually considered to be the oldest standing structure in the entire Louisville area. But it's also known for something much darker, the Chenoweth family massacre. In the summer of 1789, just before sunrise, a Native American war party rode across the Ohio River and crept onto the Chenoweth family homestead. And literally within minutes, their cabin was engulfed in flames, several of their children were dead, and both Richard and his wife Margaret were left fighting for their lives, with Margaret being struck by an arrow through the chest and then scalped as she lay on the ground pretending to be dead, as the native attackers burned their farm to the ground. But somehow after all of that, she was still alive, just barely mustering up the energy to crawl across the property to take cover inside the nearby stone spring house, until the horror which robbed her of her 3 children came to an end. And 236 years later, similar to the way Margaret survived inside of its walls all of those years ago, the very spring house that she took refuge in still stands today. Now, unfortunately, attacks like this were pretty common back then. As early American settlers kept moving westward, they pushed deeper and deeper into longtime Native American territories. And as you could probably imagine, tensions between those early settlers and the Native Americans were sky high because of that. The Chenoweth massacre was one of the tragic outcomes of that clash. It's hard to believe now, but when the Chenoweths built their homestead here in the 1780s, it was completely surrounded by remote Kentucky wilderness, well beyond the footprint of what would eventually become the city of Louisville. And now, as the last standing witness to the horror that unfolded here, the 239-year-old spring house is all that remains of the old farm. Now tucked into a quiet patch of forgotten woods, hidden in the middle of an industrial park in the East End. One of the last standing relics of the early Kentucky frontier.